Have you ever witnessed someone being utterly devalued despite their contributions? I have. I'm here to tell you about Clayton Reic, a man who poured 14 years of his life into Northrise Apparel, transforming their Eastern division from a fledgling operation into a powerhouse. He didn't rely on corporate jargon or fleeting trends. His foundation was built on trust, consistent effort, and genuine relationships. Clayton personally managed crucial accounts, understanding the intricacies of their businesses, their concerns, even the details of their family lives. These weren't just clients. They were connections he nurtured, resulting in $2 million in annual contracts. Then Brandon Kerr arrived, the new CEO, fresh from Harvard Business School with his meticulously styled haircut and bespoke suits. He represented a stark contrast to Clayton's grounded approach. In the 8 weeks since Brandon took over, he never once inquired about Clayton's client relationships, nor did he seem to care about the division's consistent 18% year-over-year growth while others stagnated. He certainly didn't seem interested in why Suncoast Financial and Vector Properties specifically requested Clayton on quarterly calls. I recall the day security escorted Clayton to his office to pack his belongings. Alicia from HR, a veteran of 15 years, couldn't meet his eyes. Thomas, the CFO, initially walked past but hesitated, doubling back to offer an awkward pat on Clayton's shoulder before continuing down the hall. Clayton packed quietly. Family photos, a fishing trophy from Vector Properties, a heartfelt note from Diane at Suncoast thanking him for his timely intervention during a crisis. 14 years reduced to a single cardboard box. He nodded respectfully to the security personnel and walked to his car without protest. Watching the glass tower shrink in his rearview mirror, Clayton felt a strange lightness, the absence of the usual weight of 30 employees and millions in contracts. This liberation should have been welcomed, but it felt unsettling. Clayton had joined Northrise when they were operating out of a humble warehouse in Charlotte. Back then, their focus was on securing corporate uniform contracts with local banks and healthcare providers. The Eastern Division was bleeding money when Clayton was brought in, tasked with either turning it around or shutting it down. Over the next 3 years, he personally visited every potential client within a 100-mile radius, learning about their frustrations with existing suppliers. Late deliveries, subpar quality, inconsistent sizing. He addressed those issues head-on. His team expanded to 15, then 25 individuals. They moved to a better office space. He promoted Janice from customer service to account management, recognizing her exceptional client handling skills. He hired Keith, a fresh design school graduate, impressed by his innovative solutions to previously unrecognized problems. His son, Dylan, was 12 when he started at Northrise. Now, at 26, he was working as an architect in Seattle. His wife, Jennifer, a constant source of strength, supported his countless late nights, emergency weekend calls, and urgent trips to salvage accounts. In building something that will last, he often told her, and she believed him. During his tenure, 3 CEOs had come and gone, each valuing what he had built. The company evolved from a regional player to a national contender, with his division consistently leading in growth and client retention. The previous year's merger, however, brought about a shift. The Kestrel Group acquired Northrise and installed their own board. Initially, Clayton wasn't concerned, believing that performance would speak for itself. But cracks began to appear when Brandon Kerr and his efficiency experts arrived, armed with spreadsheets that failed to capture the essence of the relationships that held everything together. Their discussions revolved around client acquisition costs, completely ignoring the value of client relationships. 2 weeks before his termination, Brandon requested a comprehensive report on all major accounts. Clayton provided detailed information on contract values, renewal dates, and growth opportunities, However, he deliberately omitted the intangible aspects, such as attending the funeral of Suncoast's procurement director's father or personally inspecting Vector's initial major order at 2 a.m. to ensure its flawless execution for their company-wide launch. When Brandon's assistants scheduled their meeting for a mere 10 minutes, Clayton knew what was coming. He had witnessed this scenario play out before, just never imagined he would be the victim. The morning after his dismissal, Clayton sat in his home office, staring blankly at his phone, devoid of messages from his former workplace. Jennifer brought him coffee, gently squeezing his shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "They don't understand what they've done," he replied. Surprisingly, he wasn't angry, but felt a strange sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in years. He turned to his personal laptop, examining his own contacts, a treasure trove of names, numbers, and personal emails, representing 14 years of genuine connections. The first call came at 9:30 a.m. It was Diane from Suncoast Financial. "Clayton, we just received a mass email about organizational changes at Northrise. Please tell me you're not affected." Clayton took a deep breath. "I was let go yesterday." The silence that followed spoke volumes. "Who's taking over the accounts?" she finally asked. "They didn't say, but I assume it's one of Brandon's new team members." Another pause. "We've got our contract renewal in 6 weeks." "I know, Clayton," Diane continued, "and I need to be frank. The board only approved staying with Northrise last time because of you. Your pricing was higher than competitors, but you always delivered and proactively resolved issues." Clayton remained silent, listening to the rhythmic tapping of her pen against the desk, a telltale sign of her grappling with a difficult decision. "I need to talk to my team," she concluded. "Can I call you back on this number?" "Of course," Clayton replied. After hanging up, he walked downstairs and joined Jennifer at the kitchen table, where she was preparing lunch. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I think I will be." His phone buzzed with a text from Keith, his design lead at Northrise. "Brandon called an emergency meeting, asking about client contact info for your accounts. No one's giving him straight answers. What's happening?" Clayton set the phone down without responding. Later that afternoon, Harold from Vector Properties called, followed by Michael from Eastern Bank and Stephanie from Bright Healthcare Systems. The conversations followed a similar pattern: shock at his departure, concerns about the future, and questions about their contracts. Clayton was honest, refraining from bad-mouthing Northrise or Brandon. He simply answered their questions. Yes, he had been terminated. No, he wasn't aware of the transition plan. Yes, he was considering his options. By evening, he had 5 missed calls from Brandon Kerr, which he ignored. That night, Clayton created his own spreadsheet, not of clients or contracts, but of possibilities. Companies that had tried to recruit him over the years, competitors who might value his experience and connections, and even the option of starting his own consulting firm. For 14 years, he had built bridges for Northrise Apparel. Now, he faced the decision of whether to burn them or build new ones for himself. He chose the latter. 3 days after his termination, Brandon's texts escalated to calls, which Clayton let go to voicemail. On the 4th day, he finally answered. "Clayton, we need to talk." Brandon's voice was strained. "Some concerns have arisen with several key accounts." "I'm sure your team can handle it," Clayton replied. "That's just it. Suncoast is threatening to pull their contract. They're saying they only worked with us because of you." Clayton watched a cardinal land on the feeder outside his window. That's their decision to make. Look, maybe we moved too quickly with these restructuring changes. The board is concerned about the potential revenue impact. We could discuss a consulting arrangement to help with the transition. For a moment, Clayton considered it. A consulting gig would provide easy money while he explored his options, but something felt disingenuous about Brandon's sudden change of heart. "I appreciate the offer, but I need some time to think about it. That afternoon, Clayton met Jerry Campbell for coffee. Jerry, Northrise's former CFO before the merger, had also been ousted. He still had contacts within the company. "Brandon's in full panic mode," Jerry said, stirring his coffee. Apparently, Suncoast and Vector both sent formal letters indicating they want to renew their contracts. "Did they say why?" Clayton asked. "Loss of key relationship personnel, leadership instability, pretty much corporate speak for we only trusted Clayton." Clayton nodded, feeling a mix of validation and concern for his former team. "There's more," Jerry continued. "Brandon told the board you're sabotaging the company, calling clients and telling them to leave." Clayton set his cup down. "I haven't told anyone to do anything. I've simply taken their calls and answered honestly. That's not how Brandon's portraying it. He's building a case that you violated your termination agreement and might try to claw back your severance." Driving home, Clayton received another call from Brandon, which he ignored, letting it go to voicemail. Listening to it later, he heard a complete shift in tone. "Clayton, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We value everything you've built here. The board has authorized me to offer you a senior VP position. Better title, better package than before. Call me back. We should discuss." That evening, Daniel Thompson, CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitters, a smaller competitor who had tried to recruit Clayton twice before, called. "I heard what happened at Northrise," he said. "Their loss. My offer still stands, but I'd like to sweeten it. Senior VP, equity stake, and complete control over your client relationships." Clayton told him he needed a few days to consider his options. That night, he received an email from Northrise's legal department, alleging a violation of non-solicitation agreements. The language was threatening, implying litigation if he didn't cease interfering with company relationships. Without comment, Clayton forwarded it to Paul Henderson, a lawyer friend. The next morning, he had his answer. "This legal threat is paper-thin," Paul said. "They're trying to intimidate you, but I reviewed your contract. You never signed a non-solicitation agreement. The standard non-compete only prevents you from joining a competitor for 6 months. It doesn't stop clients from following you." Clayton recalled signing the contract 14 years ago, in a different era for the company. The old CEO had been straightforward. "This just prevents you from taking our training and immediately working for the competition." There was nothing about client relationships. "So, I've done nothing wrong legally?" Clayton asked. "Not a thing. In fact, if they pursue this, we could counter for wrongful termination, given the abrupt nature and lack of a transition plan for a senior leader. Courts don't look favorably on that." Clayton thanked him and hung up just as an email arrived from Janice at Northrise. Subject line: "You should know this." She attached an internal presentation from 2 weeks before his termination, outlining Brandon's restructuring plan, eliminating his position regardless of performance, replacing experienced staff with cheaper recent graduates, and raising prices on long-term clients by 15% upon contract renewal. A note on slide 12 read, "Relationship-dependent business model presents significant risk. Need to transition to system-dependent model to maximize margins." They hadn't fired him because he was failing. They'd fired him because he was succeeding in a way that didn't fit their spreadsheet vision. More disturbing was a list of team reduction targets, with Keith, Janice, and 3 others from his division marked for termination once he was gone. Clayton printed the document and sat with it at his kitchen table, Jennifer reading over his shoulder. "They were planning to dismantle everything you built," she said quietly. "And blame any fallout on me," Clayton added. His phone buzzed with another text from Brandon. "Board meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss reconciliation ASAP. Please call." Clayton set the phone down and looked at the presentation again. The last slide showed projected revenue after all changes. 22% higher margins, assuming all clients stayed despite price increases and service reductions. It was a house of cards. He called Daniel at Summit Ridge. "I'm interested in your offer," Clayton said, "with one condition. I want to bring my core team, 5 people total." "Done," Daniel answered without hesitation. "When can you start?" 2 weeks, and he'll need official offer letters for all of us today." That evening, Clayton called Keith, then Janice, then the others. He explained everything. The termination, the restructuring plan, their names on the cut list. He told them about Summit Ridge's offer. All 5 accepted immediately. Clayton slept better that night than he had since the termination. He didn't return Brandon's calls or emails. Instead, he scheduled meetings with his top clients, not to poach them, but to check in as a friend. He met Diane from Suncoast for lunch near her office. "We're not renewing with Northrise," she said before even ordering. "The question is where we go next." "I can't solicit your business right now," Clayton explained. "Legally, I need to be careful." She smiled. "I understand. But hypothetically, if you were working somewhere that offered similar services, we would be very interested in following you." By week's end, Clayton had similar conversations with all 5 major clients. None had received calls from Brandon or anyone else at Northrise attempting to salvage the relationships. Meanwhile, Summit Ridge sent formal offer letters to his team. One by one, they submitted their resignations at Northrise. The following Monday, Brandon showed up at Clayton's house unannounced. Clayton was in the garage working on his old Chevy when Brandon pulled into the driveway in his Mercedes. "We need to talk, Clayton," he said. Anxiety etched on his face. "This has gone too far. The board is breathing down my neck. Key team members resigning, clients threatening to leave." "Sounds challenging," Clayton replied, wiping his hands on a rag. "Unfortunately, I've accepted a position elsewhere." Brandon's face flushed. "You're joining a competitor? That violates your non-compete. Summit Ridge isn't on the restricted list in my contract." Paul Henderson confirmed it yesterday. "You're talking to lawyers now?" "Clayton, be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, well, beat it." Clayton closed the hood of his truck. "It's not about the money, Brandon. It never was." "Then what do you want? Name it." Clayton looked at him directly for the first time. "I wanted respect for 14 years of building something valuable. I wanted a conversation, not a 10-minute dismissal. I wanted my team protected, not targeted for elimination to pad some spreadsheet." Brandon's expression shifted as he realized Clayton knew about the restructuring plan. That was just a draft, a scenario planning exercise. "Goodbye, Brandon," Clayton said, walking past him toward his house. "The board will fight this," Brandon called after him. "Well, sue you, Summit Ridge, everyone involved." Clayton turned back one last time. "You can try, but before you do, ask yourself what will cost shareholders more. Letting me walk away quietly or a public legal battle explaining why all your major clients and top talent left simultaneously?" Brandon had no answer. A week later, Clayton started at Summit Ridge. 2 weeks after that, his non-compete period ended. Within a month, 4 of the 5 major clients from Northrise had signed new contracts with Summit Ridge, specifically requesting Clayton as their account manager. He never contacted anyone else at Northrise, nor did he speak ill of the company publicly. He didn't have to. 6 months after joining Summit Ridge, Clayton was reviewing quarterly numbers in his new office when Daniel knocked on his door. "You might want to see this," he said, handing Clayton his tablet. It displayed a financial news article about Northrise Apparel with the headline, "CEO Brandon Kerr steps down amid financial shortfall." The article detailed how Northrise had missed quarterly projections by 18%, with the Eastern Division, Clayton's former territory, experiencing a nearly 40% loss in business. The board had accepted Brandon's resignation, effective immediately. Clayton handed the tablet back without comment. You don't seem surprised, Daniel noted. Hard to build relationships on spreadsheets, Clayton replied. That afternoon, he received a LinkedIn message from Thomas, Northrise's CFO. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss recovery strategies. Your name came up. Would you consider a conversation? Clayton didn't respond. Instead, he finalized their quarterly presentation for Suncoast Financial. Their team had delivered the new corporate uniforms 2 weeks early, and the feedback had been overwhelmingly positive. Diane had already introduced them to 2 other potential clients in their network. The next day, Jerry Campbell called. Thought you'd want to know, Kestrel Group is trying to sell off Northrise. The stock's down 22% since you left. Who's buying? Clayton asked. That's the thing. No takers yet. Word is they're trying to reach out to you through back channels. The board thinks you're the only one who can stabilize the client relationships. Clayton thanked Jerry for the information and returned to work. Later, he took his team out for lunch to celebrate their first 2 quarters of consecutive growth. Keith shared sketches for a new product line, Janice provided updates on client feedback, and they discussed Summit Ridge's expansion plans. No one mentioned Northrise. That evening, Clayton received a direct email from Eleanor Barnes, Northrise's board chair. Clayton, the situation has become untenable. We made a grave error in judgment. Would you consider returning as CEO? Complete autonomy, significant equity stake, board seat. Name your terms. Clayton closed his laptop without replying. The next morning, he called a meeting with his team at Summit Ridge. I have been approached about returning to Northrise, he said plainly. I wanted you all to hear it from me first. I'm declining the offer. Keith nodded. Figured they'd try eventually. Janice smiled. Too little, too late. Exactly, Clayton said. We're building something better here. That afternoon, he sent a brief email to Eleanor. I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. I'm committed to my current position. I wish Northrise the best going forward. 3 days later, the news broke. Summit Ridge Outfitters had acquired Northrise Apparel's Eastern Division in a strategic asset purchase. The press release highlighted the move as reuniting key talent with established client relationships. Daniel had negotiated the deal quietly, paying pennies on the dollar for what had once been Northrise's crown jewel. The board had no choice. It was either sell to them or watch it collapse entirely. Clayton never had to strike back directly. The market did it for him. 1 year after his termination from Northrise, and as a silent observer, I drove past their former Eastern Division office. The Summit Ridge logo now adorned the building where the Northrise sign had once hung. The building looked the same, but everything inside had changed. They had rehired some of the staff who had been let go during Brandon's brief tenure and recovered 3 more client relationships that had deteriorated after Clayton's departure. The division now generated more revenue under Summit Ridge than it ever had under Northrise. I parked across the street and watched employees leaving for the day, familiar faces mingling with new ones, all looking happy, engaged, and purposeful. When I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner. I drove by the old office today, I told her. She studied my expression. Nostalgia or closure? Closure, I think, I replied. Did you know it's been exactly 1 year? She nodded. I remembered. That's why I made your favorite tonight. Over dinner, Dylan called from Seattle to share news about a major project his architecture firm had landed. How's the new job going, Dad? He asked. Good. Building something that will last, Clayton replied. The same words he had used for 14 years at Northrise. But this time, he knew it was true. Later that evening, he received a text from Jerry Campbell. Northrise's remaining divisions just got acquired by Gravora Group. Clean sweep, nothing left of the original company. Clayton set his phone down and walked out to the deck. The spring air was warm, filled with possibility. He thought about Brandon, briefly wondering what he was doing now, hoping he had learned something, though he doubted it. He reflected on all those years building bridges for a company that didn't value them. The late nights, missed family dinners, postponed vacations. The sacrifices had been real, but so were the relationships he had built. In the end, those relationships had followed him, not because he had asked them to, but because they had built something authentic together. No spreadsheet could capture that value, and no restructuring could erase it. The next morning, Clayton arrived at Summit Ridge early. He reviewed their quarterly projections, now 30% above target, and checked their client retention numbers, 97%, the highest in company history. Daniel stopped by his office. "Board approved your proposal," he said. "Employee ownership program starts next quarter. Keith and Janice will head up the implementation team." Clayton nodded. "They'll do it right. Daniel said, leaning against the doorframe, "When all this started, I thought we were just getting a talented executive and some lucrative client relationships. I didn't realize we were getting a completely different way of doing business. Relationships over transactions," Clayton replied. "Always." After Daniel left, Clayton opened his desk drawer and removed the fishing trophy vector properties had given him years ago. He placed it on his shelf next to new photos of his team at Summit Ridge. He didn't need revenge, he didn't need vindication. He just needed to build something that would last, and this time he had.